Emma, how are you?
Hi, Simon. Yeah, great. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Lovely to see you and welcome to the Inspiral podcast. Let's get straight into this. Living alone without feeling lonely. I know plenty of people are living alone and are lonely, and the Inspiral podcast is going to meet people where they are. But you've learned some tricks and tips across the years to embrace this and actually enjoy living alone. Where do we start with your journey, Emma?
I think we start sort of towards the start, I guess, when living alone sounded like the scariest thing on the planet and wasn't something that I was comfortable with. And how I got to where I am now, where actually I love it and I revel in it. And now I'm more nervous about never being able to live with someone else again. Like, how do I fit somebody else into this life that I've built for myself? Um, so do you want me to just start from the start? Where was I then?
Yes, I do. I mean, even that has thrown something up in my mind that how do I now, after experiencing the other side, which apparently was terrible, but I'm enjoying it and embracing it, how do I even let someone else come in? But yes, start at the start when you weren't alone, where you were alone, or where you feel comfortable.
Yeah, so I guess I always lived with people, although I did have a bit of a tumultuous childhood. I got made homeless and I ended up moving into a YMCA supported house when I was 17 years old. But I was with a massive family and another kid that they were helping out and four dogs. It was actually quite a busy house, lots of people there. I went to uni and I lived with people because you have housemates and stuff when you're at uni. When I left uni, I moved in with a boyfriend. We then moved in with my dad to care for him while he passed away. And then we moved back to London and I was still with that boyfriend. But when I broke up with him, I had to move out and it took a long time. We lived on a boat. It took a long time to sell it. And it was very awkward actually living in the same place when you're not together. And there's actually a bit of animosity there. That wasn't great. Sometimes I'd sleep in my car because I'd rather be there than in the boat. And I moved to a flat on my own. And at that time, I'd actually met somebody else, and I was with them, but we weren't living together. And I didn't know how to be on my own. I hated it. I would go to work insanely early. I'd literally get up really, really early, just get ready, leave the house, well, the flat, get into the city. And at that time, I worked and lived around London, so it was quite a long commute into work. And this is pre-COVID, so no working from home back then. And I'd stay really late at work just because I didn't want to go home if I didn't have plans, or sometimes I'd even walk it. This sounds really a little bit pathetic, but is what it is. I'd go into the pub and just sort of hang out, knowing that somebody from work would appear. And, sometimes I'd say, oh, my friend just left. I was just finishing my drink or something and make an excuse to be there. And then I'd be around people still. So this is how much I didn't want to be on my own and how I really struggled. And then COVID hit, and like everybody else, my life changed. So I was living in a very small one-bedroom flat in Watford at the time, and I was suddenly on my own. And they didn't have the bubbles in the first lockdown. Remember, we were literally just you had to stay in your own home. I didn't know anybody in Watford because when you live and work in London, you just sort of everybody's in London, aren't they? So you don't actually necessarily know the
That's
people who
right.
you live near. Um, so I couldn't even go for a walk with somebody that I knew. That wasn't a thing, even though that was in the rules. So I was literally on my own for like 55, 56 days, fully on my own. And my partner and I at the time were arguing, and we spent a lot of that not talking. And it broke me. It was everybody had a really tough time in COVID, but that broke me. But then actually I learned how to cope with it because you can't just stop existing. It was either stop going or keep going. So I found a way to keep going. I did puzzles. Like everybody else, I did diamond art and discovered podcasts. I started listening to podcasts in lockdown. I remember I was listening to the Fake Doctors, Real Friends, the Scrubs one. And I rewatched all of Scrubs because we all had lots of time back then to be doing a
Mm.
lot of TV watching. And I kind of got used to it. It kind of got a bit easier every day, slowly but surely, despite all of the not so fun things going on in the background with COVID. And then I started thinking, right, I'm starting to grow out of this relationship. We'd sort of made up and we were fine between the different various lockdowns. When we went into bubbles, he was then coming round and things like that. But I decided I wanted to move back to where I was from, which is a good couple of hours away. And I decided I was going to make the move. I decided I was ready and I was going to start again. And that's what I did. And so now I've set up a whole new life and I live on my own. We did eventually break up. And when we broke up, 2 days after we broke up, it was quite amicable. I decided I was going to book a ticket to a comedy gig because I'd felt during that relationship that I was really not able to do fun things that I wanted to do. I love music. Music is basically why I have a job, so I can go watch live music. Um, and I love comedy as well. Like, who doesn't love to laugh, right? So, but he never really wanted to go to any of those things, so I didn't really get to do that. So I was like, right, I'm going to go to a comedy gig, and I went and sat in the middle of the front row on my own, and that was the first thing I did on my own. I felt really brave at the time, and I was
I'm feeling
terrified.
that for you.
Yeah, I was
Who was the
terrified.
comedian? This makes a lot of difference.
Jamali Maddox. So
Right.
he's one of my favourites. Very funny, a little bit controversial, but I quite like that. And he
Was there
picked
a
on
chance
me.
you could have been picked up? Yes,
He
that's what
picked
I
on me.
mean.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually like that. I'm a bit weird. I love being picked on by
You're not
comedians. Like, if I
weird.
don't get picked on, I feel like I've lost out. Like, and I really laughed. He made a joke about 9/11, which I found quite funny. And I was laughing a little bit longer than everybody else. And he was like, "Oh, you like that one, didn't you?" And he's like, "Let me come and talk to you. So who are you here with?" And I was like, "I'm here by myself." And he said, "Oh, not with a boyfriend, girlfriend?" And I was like, "Oh no, don't have one anymore." He's like, "Anymore? Oh, okay. What's your relationship like with your dad?" And I was like, "Oh, you've walked right into this, haven't you?" I was like, "Well, not particularly good, really, because he's dead." And the comedian didn't know what to do, right? He actually turned
Not
around because he
surprised.
didn't know what to do with his face. And like, my dad passed away like 11 years ago, so I'm not particularly emotional about it all of the time. That I can make quite fun jokes about it, and he had a dark sense of humor. I've got a dark sense of humor. It was hilarious. And then he said, "Oh, what about your mum?" And I was like, "Trust me, quit while you're ahead. It's not going to help. Not going to make anything better. That just
I mean, in
move on."
terms of content, though, and someone to speak to, he hit the jackpot with you.
Oh, we did. The whole
As
room
much
was
as
laughing.
everybody is glued to their seat thinking, I don't know whether to laugh or
Yeah, yeah,
not.
exactly. And I found it hilarious. And that was my first experience of doing something on my own, really. I'd never done anything like that before. And it was brilliant. And I booked another one and I booked another one. And then I thought, I've done comedy on my own. I can do music on my own. So there was a gig I wanted to go to. Happened to be abroad. I really wanted to see Bring Me the Horizon. And I'd missed their UK leg of the tour, but they had a show in Amsterdam, not particularly a long flight from where I live. So jumped on a plane, went to Amsterdam, went to see Bring Me the Horizon, came back the next day, and I did all that by myself. And once you've done that, you can kind of do anything. At that point, I was like, okay, I can do the cinema, I can go for a meal, I can do this, I can live. There's nothing stopping me anymore.
Listen, Emma, I have questions,
Go for it.
as you would hope, and I'm going to rewind this
Yeah,
slightly because I can see you blossoming in the independence now, which gives a lot of people strength. That there's actually the thing that you're fearing doesn't happen, and it's more opportunity than not.
yeah,
And I want to go back. You said that there's nothing off limits. So let's go
nothing.
back to try and discover what you might have been fearful without of the connection. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, what did you see in connection that was so comforting to you? And did any of this go back to, like you said, when you were younger, as a child, with the instability around the household? And then, and I'm asking this with someone else I know in mind, actually. Did that attachment, were you trying to attach yourself to people for some reason because you feared being alone, whether it's their experiences of being alone? I think you know where my head is trying to go to this, because the relief of being alone was not like the fear you experienced.
Yeah, I think so. I was an only child, so I was on my own quite a lot growing up in terms of like there were not other children around. And I'm actually autistic as well, so I didn't naturally gel with my peers. Um, and so I would spend a lot of time sort of on my own in my bedroom reading. I loved reading. One half term I read 27 books. Um,
You do
fun
love
fact.
reading.
Yeah. And I'd played with my Lego. I was very much a bit of a loner kid anyway. And other kids and I didn't get on. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. So I was on my own quite a lot of the kid. It didn't bother me that much though until sort of maybe year five, year six, when those sort of social structures really start being more
Hmm.
apparent.
Hmm.
Um, and when I did have friends, they were always boys because boys are less like dramatic. I know I'm generalizing, but like in general, like you can kick each other about, you can take the mickey out of each other and no one takes it personally. Do that with a girl and like you've suddenly got an enemy for life who's going to rip your hair out 6 months later. It's just not worth it. And then I think in the home, I mean, my parents were always around. So my dad worked nights and my mum worked days. They were both nurses. So there was always someone there. But then something happened with my mum when I was young. She had some mental health issues, ended up in
Hmm.
a mental hospital. And at that point, she wasn't allowed to be on her own with me, like legally.
Hmm.
So then I used to have to go and spend all weekends with my grandparents. And I think, I don't know, I was really, really attached to my dad. We were, when my parents divorced when I was 9, like it was us against the world. We'd wear matching denim jackets. My hair is exactly the same as his, like the natural,
Daddy's girl.
not the beautiful bleach. I was a daddy's girl. And it was us against the world. We were really, really well gelled, but then we also clashed a lot. Like anybody who gets on too well with someone too similar,
Yeah.
you clash. And especially when there's a teenager involved, you clash.
Yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
sort of scream at each other for an hour every 2 weeks, and then things would build up, and then we'd scream at each other again, and then 2 weeks apiece. Um,
Also
and
because you felt
then,
safe enough in
yeah,
that area to do that. In fact,
yeah,
sometimes being shouted at is a privilege as a parent
yeah,
because you're the only one that absorbs the pain of your daughter.
yeah, definitely. And I think we had, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a healthy relationship. He was dyslexic, and sometimes like bills and stuff, numbers he wasn't good, and I
Right.
was a gifted and talented child, as they called it then. Um, And so, I'd help him with bills and things like that when I was like 10. So there was some probably not parent-child relationship there.
Mhm.
But when my dad then started dating a woman I really hated, I lost the rock that I had. We had this solid relationship and we slowly drifted further and further apart. I'd get a text saying, "Don't bother coming home." And I'd just have to work out where I was sleeping that night quite a lot when I was like 15. I actually lived at my like best friend's house for 6 months just before my GCSEs. Her parents actually offered to basically adopt me. Like they were like, "Do we need to make something official here?" And I was like, "No, it's not dramatic. I'll go home eventually." Um, and then yeah, eventually that got made permanent when I was 17. And then he realised what the truth of the situation was with her and left her and welcomed me back into his life about a year later. So I was really glad that we managed to sort that out before he passed away, and I'm quite lucky really. There was nothing left unsaid. We ended on good terms. I took care of him and things like that. But I do think that's probably the root of me not wanting to be on my own, was probably that I was forced to be on my own, and that caused instability. And I don't know if maybe I linked loneliness, being on your own, and instability of like actual home and where you live. I don't know. I think I probably did. I think that's probably
Well,
where my fear of being alone
yeah,
really came from.
I'm not trained in any way, but I'm thinking just by listening to you, did you feel alone when essentially you're looking around and friends have homes, so to speak, whatever that is? We know that many aren't happy, but you just wanted that form of connection and somewhere to call a safe base?
Yeah, 100%. And like, I was really lucky to have that with my friends' parents. Like, I mean, I still
Yeah.
see them now, every now and then, now that I've moved back towards where I grew up. Uh, my friend's brother is in a band and they still exist, and whenever they play I go see them, and they're really great, and the parents are often there and I'll be like, oh hi, honorary parents. I remember her dad actually like cried when I told him I'd bought a house. He was like so proud of me, and like I was telling him about how I was putting up shelves and I was doing all of this stuff, and he was like, oh, I'm so happy for you, and it's nice. So I sort of latched on to other people.
As you would as a child as well, as a young person.
Yeah. I mean, you need some sort of
Yeah, of
someone
course.
guiding you in the world when you're
Direction,
15.
yeah.
Geez. So I was a clever kid and I was sensible for the most part, but I had a good head on my shoulders. But you still need some sort of guidance and
Of
love.
course.
Everybody
Uh,
needs love.
You've hit the nail on the
Um,
head with love.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Now, fast forward with the fear of missing out and social media. I don't know how prevalent social media was then, but with everyone looking perfect and everyone looking happy and connected, how was or how do you think social media would have been back then? And I'm thinking of other 15-year-olds now who find disconnect in their family relationships or their friendship groups. Many do, especially sort of 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds who were 13, 14, 15 when lockdown happened and lost those developmental years. But all they've got as far as education goes and what they should be aspiring to is Instagram and other social media, which can lead them down a path of comparinitis, completely the thief of joy, being glued to the phone and everything else. How much of a thing was that then? And what do you think now? What would your advice be now?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm 32 now. So, when I was at high school, Facebook was a thing, but you didn't live on it. MSN you lived on. You'd run home from school and sit on MSN and like
Hmm.
log out and log back in if your crush was online so that they'd see a little pop up that you were existed, and would they message you, and you'd put emotional lyrics in your
Adrenaline rush.
status. Oh God, full of adrenaline. But Facebook was like, it was very different back then. Like you'd post all the pictures from your night out and you'd all look dreadful. And like I remember I was talking about this the other day with some friends. Like you'd read magazines when you were like 8, 9, 10 or whatever, and you'd see Britney Spears in her latest double denim outfit or whatever. You never aspired really to look like them in terms of being really skinny, but you might wear their outfits. That's completely changed now. And I think just in general, social media is a much more oppressive presence, I'd say. Like it's more in your face, and I think there's more pressure on people to look like or to be like what they see on social media. And I feel it now as a grown ass woman who's really strong
Mhm.
and knows who she is. I see people with outfits and I want to wear those outfits, or lifestyles that I wish I had, like you always wish you had more than you've got. But I mean, bringing it back to the question, I can't imagine going through what I went through now with the additional pressure of seeing all these perfect families, right? I really don't know what difference it would have made, but I can't imagine it would have been good.
Positive. What we're constructing, I think, during our conversation now is an essence of a striving for connection. I'm trying to get a difference between, at one point, connection, friendship groups, and people were everything for you. That was where you wanted. So the association was with loved, was with someone looking after you, someone's got your back. And now, fast forward, you're almost strong enough, you are strong enough in thought and mind and body to be on your own. So I'm trying to get what on your own is. Do you still have love, friendship groups and everything else? So that's there. Or is it now an independence? I don't think you're mad going to the pub on your own. I've done that many times. But I tell you one thing I've never done, and that's gone for a meal on my own.
Ooh, I've
I've
done
been
it.
on a singles cruise or a solo cruise, and just for a second, when I got off I can't even remember where it was, walked down the seafront, and all the way down, I was thinking, oh, look at those couples having a go at each other, about sun cream and the kids and everything else. Oh God, so glad I'm single. And then I got to the end and had a couple of beers and did a little bit of journaling, and on the way back, the sun was setting, and I thought, oh, at those couples, aren't they lovely? Wouldn't it be lovely to be part of a couple, hand in hand? So I didn't quite know what I wanted. I wanted certain parts of being alone, and then I didn't want the other bit. So for me, staying single is probably the clearest option. So you went to the pub on your own. I don't think that's bad. Were you trying to, are you people powered then in that sense? Were you going out to seek validation? Did you not just want to be alone?
I think I just didn't want to be alone. And I think I grew up watching Friends. I grew up watching like sitcoms. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
this was a weird
yes.
thing to bring up, but and you know, Big Bang Theory and all of these other things where people just walk into each other's apartments and they're best friends and they do everything together. And I've never really had that. I still don't have it now. I never really had big friendship groups. I would say I was on the fringes of a few groups. I had one or two close people at every stage of my life. I've had one or two close people. I've probably got more people now, but they're all, I don't have a best friend where I'm their best friend, they're my best friend, and it's us against the world. I don't have that. And I think it's actually healthier that I don't have that, even though I think I probably wanted that most of my life. I think I'm healthier and happier in my head not having it and accepting that I have actually a great set of people that I can rely on when I really need them and that I get on well with and things like that. Um, I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. I can't remember what you asked
No,
now.
no, you haven't. And I'm making notes. Although social media wasn't huge back in the day, you were watching Friends, which is
Yeah.
essentially the same sort of visual representation of what is the norm. So you were associating that to Friends. Do you think, therefore, that we're programmed in a way to think that being on your own means that you're not popular? So by default, that you are not aspiring to, you're not a great friend to anyone, you're not a great confidant to someone, and we want to be popular. There's something that's craving us. Like, I was Chandler, by the way. Which friend were you?
Oh, I don't. If I had to, I wish I was Chandler, but I was probably more Monica, is probably what I'd say.
Monica. Lovely. Um, and so my point is, sometimes we can invest in a best friend, or we can want to be the popular one, but then be very disappointed because we don't. It's a construct in our own head. Actually, I think you're completely right. Different friends for different needs, as they say, or different purposes.
Yes, fair weather friends have their place. We all need them. We need the person that's just there for a good time, and we need the person that's there no matter what. The person that you can tell to go and grab you some pants because you're in hospital is very different to the fair weather friend that you'll have some great times with down the pub, but they both play their part, is what I'd say. Sorry to interrupt. It's just that's a thing.
Oh, I completely get it. I completely get it. And also, if you are trying to find a friend that likes going down the pub, likes reading 27 books in a week, has a story that you can relate to, you're never going to find one. But so you're constantly trying to mask or be a different person in some aspects to that person. Whereas if you've got a gym friend, drinking friend, reading friend, crying friend, relationship breakup friend, or whatever it might be, you can go to those people who will be solely invested in that part of you at that time, which makes you feel heard, represented, and understood.
100%. And that's what I've built. But again, I grew up thinking that you had these six friends or these five
Yeah.
friends. You were one of the six, and that was your group, and that was what life would be like. And again, I think the autism didn't help with that because I really did think that that was fact. I don't think I had any lens of that this was not real. And so I went through high school not having that group, went through college not having that group, went through uni not having that group, and then just you then end up at work and I still didn't have that group, if that makes sense. I've moved a lot as well, which doesn't help. So I do have one friend who is still friends with all the people she was at school with. She's got this really tight knit group and they come together for birthdays and all this. And I used to be really jealous of that. I used to really be like, oh, I wish I had that. But actually, they're not really that close. They are very fair weather now, even though they were a lot closer together when they were younger. And I don't wish I had that now. I'm not bothered by that anymore. But it's taken me a long time to get to that point.
Don't you think the older we get, the more we see that not all couples are happy? Not all social groups are actually got each other's back. In fact, there's a few crossed words and, having a go at each other or side-eyeing and look at each other down the nose of others and being judgy. I'm not saying in all, but I'm saying for all the things that we think are good about being popular and in that group, at least being on my own in some shape or form, don't know if you agree with me, is a protection mechanism because no one can say anything. No one can hold anything against me. I'm not trying to be anything I'm not. Is there a protection? Is there a strength in being on your own?
I think there is. And I think it's where I've really come into my own. I was talking about the fact that I was doing this podcast with you, with one of my good friends last night, who I've known for, I don't know, 11 years now. So he's seen me through two of those relationships, me move, me become my strong, independent woman. I think his exact words were, "I love you so much more as who you are now. Like I really think you're in your best phase now that you're off on your own." And I do really feel that. I do think to a certain extent it is a defense mechanism. I do think that I've put a wall up of, well, if the world's going to put me on my own, I'm going to learn to love it and I'm going to make it the best thing about me. I do think it probably did come from that place, but I think I've ended up with a healthy outcome.
Yeah, and there's not a lot that friend doesn't know about you, I'm guessing, after the you
There's
even
definitely
lit up
not.
then. You're even quite embarrassed at the thought that
Well,
what does he know?
I went for a
Mm,
dermatology appointment a few weeks ago to
mm,
look at a mole that wasn't quite good, and it was on my
mhm,
belly. And so I
mhm.
expected to just lift my top a little bit and for them to look at it and then me to go home saying, no, it's great. No, I had to strip down to my underwear and I wasn't wearing the best pants. And the first person I told about this story was this guy.
Uh,
Yeah, loved on.
well, yeah, yeah, with all that to know, he's next on the interview list. No, I'm joking. Um, well, are there any role models for people who are strong and on their own? Or are they all called hard? This whatever the terminology is, because they're ruthless, because they're unforgiving, or are they just on their own and actually not wanting to put up with all the bullshit of having to put up with everyone's this, that, and the other. And the world has got so insular now, certainly since 2020, where everyone's been told to stay at home. You don't turn on the news because everything is going berserk around the world and doesn't seem to make any sense. So the only thing we can do actually is to bring our network in so tight and look after the ones we can actually control. Is it almost old fashioned? Is it almost unreal for people to expect to have large social groups in this world that everyone's feeling very disconnected nowadays? The pop culture's gone for a start.
Well, yeah, I think I do still know a lot of people who have big social groups. Some of them are splintered, some of them are a mixture of a few. One of my close friends, um, she lived 2 counties away and she's got lots of friends back there, and now she's building lots of friends here as well. So she's sort of part of lots of big groups. So I do think it's still possible. I think it's less possible than it was. I do think more people are more insular and in their own little bubbles. And I think that then makes it more difficult to create a bubble because they've all got their bubbles. And I think this comes actually onto it. It's just something I wanted to cover of like, as much as I am really happy on my own, and I very rarely feel lonely living on my own, I do sometimes. And those times tend to be at Christmas and at Easter when people have all of their traditions. They either have friendship traditions that have been there for 20 years that I couldn't possibly encroach on, or they have family traditions that they go for this Easter Sunday walk or their Boxing Day walk or this, that, and the other. And then suddenly I can't fit into any of them anymore and I end up sort of more on my own with not an option to not be on my own. Whereas today, and 27th of March, when I'm recording this, no one's got a specific thing unless it's someone's birthday, and I could just end up hanging out with them. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of a weird
Mm.
time around those sort of traditional times where people are off and doing things. That's the only time I do get a little bit lonely now. So I'll hold my
They're
hands up.
also
I do
they're also
sometimes feel lonely.
traditional family times. So do you
Yes.
think that's a family connection of old?
Yes, I mean, I don't really have much family left. I have a lovely grandma who lives about 90 miles from me, and then I have a gran on the other side of the country and an aunt on that side of the country. And that gran and that aunt I didn't know when I was young. I only knew them from my teenage years onwards. They're from my mother's side of the family, and we just didn't have contact until then. So, and that's it. I don't have any brothers, I don't have any parents, I don't have any siblings, I don't have any kids. So yeah, there's not really family that I'd go to at that time, you know. And I also have
So living
cats,
a
so I don't want
yeah,
to
I got a
abandon
dog.
my cats.
I know how important pets are. So living alone without feeling lonely, and we were just talking about the loneliness that
Yeah.
you can experience on those traditional times where everyone gets together. What is your definition of lonely then?
Um, Feeling a longing for being around others and feeling like that's not possible at that time, feeling restricted from being able to be with others. Um, yeah, a
Has
longing.
lonely got some bad connotations? Because like mental health was not talked about before, and if you were called effectively mental as an insult when you were a child on the school playground, you would take that stigma and stereotype into your life. And so you wouldn't open up about it because my childhood is remembering it was a bad thing. With lonely, I think adults, and let's face it, many people are lonely, whatever that true definition is, but we don't really want to admit it because it means unpopular, left out of the sports team, not included, being around the fringes, not being the main person. And then we moved into this Facebook era where you had to have 600 friends. I know people with thousands of friends that probably know half a dozen. Then we went through people shrinking that because actually you didn't want everyone seeing anything. So there's alone versus popular, and people crave being popular, but that's not all it's cut out to be, does it? That can come with its own real problems, especially when you're social media popular, but actually you're not speaking to anyone in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you know, I know people who can be around their whole extended family, 60 people. They can't fit them in one house and they feel really lonely because they're the only gay person or the only this person or their politics doesn't match or they just don't feel like they're understood. And so even though they're surrounded by people, they actually feel lonelier than I feel because I'm quite comfortable being on my own physically, as in I am in a house with no physical human beings around me, but I don't feel lonely because I have people around me in general, like on I could message someone or I've got plans with them later in the week who do get me and they know the real me and I don't have to pretend to be somebody else to be around them. Um, like one of my closest friends, we have a weekly, I'm sorry, it's a swear. Beep it out if you have to, if your podcast, but you knew because you
Do
knew
you not?
last time we did this, I swore loads, and I've sworn very minimal in this.
It's
But we have a
absolutely
week,
staying in.
we have a weekly bitch and stitch where we sit and cross stitch and
Was
chat,
that it?
and we just hang. Yeah, bitch. But we have a weekly bitch and stitch where we just cross stitch and hang, and
Love it.
it's a really low energy hangout. Neither of us drain each other. We get on really, really well. Um, and I could turn up in my pajamas and it wouldn't matter. There's no effort involved. Um, but yeah, so people can be lonely even when they're around other people. And I think loneliness now is probably more pervasive than ever. You know, when I was a kid, people come and knock for you and you go out and play, and that's not a thing
Stop
anymore.
it. I
It's
get
an
so
art.
nostalgic. I get so nostalgic about those days
Mate, you
of
had
being
sales
out.
skills. You had to market why John could come out to play, right? You had to learn to pitch your sales pitch to the parent to make sure that they'd be allowed to come out, right? The perfect level of guilting the parent and making sure the kid can hear you, like shouting quite loud, but not shouting at the parent. Like it was a skill. It was an art.
Well, I predate you. I'm a lot older than you. I remember the days of being down the pub at 15, I mean 18. And all you were armed with, there'd be about 5 or 6 of you to start off. They used to call them all dayers. You'd be in. I'm not saying that this is good for your health or anything. I'm saying this is a memory I've got. You would be armed with between 10 to 20 Marlboro Lights. You would have snake bite and black. We could get all we could drink basically all afternoon and evening for a tenner. This is how we had a jukebox, a pool table, and a fruit machine and some other quiz machine. And all we were armed with was banter. We
Yeah.
would tear each other to shreds. And I can honestly say that that's probably the best education that I've ever had in life, for not taking things seriously, for not being too judgy about people. You could say anything to each other. And that was my form of connection. And I'm so grateful I had that as a 15 to 21, 22-year-old. And I fear that a lot of people are missing out on that now.
Yeah, and I think so. Sort of, if we look at like societal standards, girls are expected to have really good social skills really early and focus on like being friends and niceties and things like that. And boys are expected to go and be boys and play in the mud and kick each other and get over it and not have to worry about it. And I think if we translate that to now, this is why being lonely is a swear. Like this is why people don't want to admit to it, and why I think it's such a big sort of taboo. I think it really has become a taboo thing, and I don't know if it
Yeah.
always was or not, but I think it is. And so men, and there's a lot of talk about the manosphere now, and incels and all of these different online subcultures that men are exposed to or maybe feel part of. Um, and I've watched a few documentaries. I've obviously watched the famous Louis Theroux one, but I was watching a Ross Kemp one the
Yeah,
other
just
night. It's a really good watch if you haven't seen it. And they sort of debunked some myths around incels, and it was I found it really interesting. It really challenged my understanding of them. And I think it is just some lonely people who are trying to have an identity and find their place and find their other people in the world. And sometimes that's potentially more harmful than it is good, but actually I think it comes from just the place of feeling lonely and not knowing where their place is in the world.
I've just so if loneliness is not being able to be yourself, so you could be in a crowded room, but if you can't be yourself because you can't talk about your sexuality or your beliefs or something
Yeah,
else, that's really struck me about what you said. And also on social media, if you, I don't know, look up anything, your whole reel, look up a narcissist, your whole reel is full of everything telling you why you're right, why you're the victim or whatever. And
yeah,
that happens across religions, groups, beliefs. Now you're right because everyone agrees with you on the algorithm. When you go into society, it's a shock, I imagine, for many now to say, "Oh, you've got a different of opinion than
yeah.
me. I don't. You're wrong. I'm right. I know I'm right because the whole thousands of people are liking my
You're in your bubble.
algorithm that I'm."
Yeah.
You are. So people can be very not alone on social media, but very alone in real life, creating real social anxiety.
And ironically, that then pushes them more online and less in the real world because they don't feel like they fit in this real world. So then they shrink back and spend more and more time online. And that actually makes them lonelier because then they have
Yeah,
less social skills and have less contacts in the real world. And I
yeah.
mean, to your point earlier about the pub, I lived in a pub. For a while, physically lived in and worked in. So between first and second year of uni, my dad was still with that woman, and so I didn't have the YMCA house to go back to because I'd officially legally moved out of that, and I was then 18, so I couldn't go back there. And I had to form a relationship with a guy that happened to live in a pub so that I could live in a pub and have somewhere to stay for the summer. And that's what I did. And so I lived in the pub and I dealt with the people that were there from 11 in the morning and drank their 5 pints of stout to feel alive. I dealt with the Irish travellers who came in and made our pub their home after one of their women had had a baby, and in their culture, all of the men then go out drinking for a couple of days, and they picked our pub. And I was like, well, let's make sure we keep these people happy. We want the money behind the till kind of thing. And everybody else that walked in from every other walk of life that walked into that pub, I had to deal with them. I was sitting behind the bar. I had to keep them happy and keep them happy with each other and make sure they didn't end up fighting. And we've really lost that art, haven't we? It's, even myself, I'm quite into politics. I studied international relations at university. I wanted to be a political journalist coming to you from Moscow, saying what
Mm.
Putin's up to now. That was the idea. Um, Obviously, it didn't happen.
Still time.
um, oh no, I'm
Huh?
okay now. But too many wars now. It's just way more dangerous
Yes,
than when
yeah.
I was
It's
growing
a
up.
lot of travel, a lot of
Yeah,
traveling.
yeah, no, I couldn't leave the cats. But yeah, I think people only talk to the people that they agree with, and even I do that to a certain extent. I had a interesting conversation this morning about the ruling against Meta and how the apps have been decreed as being addictive
Yeah, yeah,
intentionally, and
yeah.
they've been fined for that, and it's like the biggest ruling
Which is
since
no real
tobacco.
surprise to the majority of us,
No,
is it?
but he didn't understand how social media was any different to television because he doesn't really use social media, and we had like quite a debate about it. I was like, no, it actually there's a chemical reaction in your brain. You get a dopamine hit every time you scroll and see something good for 5 seconds, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and you're addicted to the dopamine. Like it's actually a thing. It's a chemical
If
reaction in the
something's
brain.
free, the product is you. That was off
Yeah,
the notebook.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you are being continually exposed and exploited for your
yeah.
time on there.
But I found that conversation way more challenging than I probably would have done 10 years ago because it's my online presence would automatically accept that that was a fact. And that was quite a difficult conversation. And I
Sure.
think I would struggle to speak to people without getting emotional or wanting to back away from the conversation who are reform voters, for example, because that's not how I feel and that's not what I would vote for. And you see, even I'm losing these skills because I'm not forced to speak to these people anymore. So therefore, I don't have to. My little bubble, you know,
Yeah,
means that I don't get exposed to it. I don't know. It's
that's
scary.
exactly right. And I know people struggle to be alone, the feeling of being alone or the thought of being alone or lonely. But what if that is what generally makes people happier? What if I'm a bit like that. I'm not alone by default. I'm known because, you could have been burnt in relationships, friendships. I don't trust enough. The walls have gone up. So actually, I see that as wisdom and the courage to say, I'm not alone by default. I choose to be alone. And actually, don't you find it's a bit like natural selection? Because if people don't make it through the barriers because you're like, seen your type before, no way to you. I know what you'll be like further down the line.
Yeah.
Um, it keeps you safe.
Yeah. And this is what I was saying earlier about how it might not have come from a healthy place. It might not have necessarily been a healthy reaction to what my life was to put the walls up and go, right, well, if the world's going to make me be on my own, I am on my own. But I think I've flourished in it and done that in a healthier way than I think some other elements and some other online subcultures are. I think that's probably just partly a generational thing, really, in that I have grown up when I have. I think kids today going through something similar might have a completely different reaction just because of the way that the world is now compared to at least I've been exposed to the good old days of the pub and having to deal with other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so the work you've done to get to this point that you're alone but not feeling lonely, is it a mental thing then? Is it just recalibrating what your pressure you want to put on yourself?
I think it is. That sort of phrase, mind over matter. If you don't
Yeah.
mind, it doesn't matter. And I think I do still have wobbles at least once or twice a year where I'm like, oh, I feel lonely. Feel sorry for myself for a couple of days. And then I'm like, what? You love your life. You absolutely love your
Yeah.
life. Shut up. Get on with it. You're fine. And this is a transient time. This is just Christmas. And you'll be back around people again. You'll be back in the office. I love being in the office. I'm in 4 days a week. We have a 50% thing at the company I'm at, and I love being in the office. So I do like being around people. I like retreating afterwards back to my own little bubble and
Yes.
being on my
Yeah.
own though, and
Cats.
I definitely don't feel lonely.
And I think you've just hit on something as well about going out and then coming back. And, sometimes if I'm asked out for a Friday night, I say yes. I think it'd be lovely. I think, yes, I'm popular. I can
And
go
then you
out.
get
And
to
then
Friday and you're like, oh,
it gets to about 6 p.m. on Friday, and I look at my 8-month-old Labrador puppy, and I think I just want to stay in and cuddle him all night, like drama free. Although I'm not saying that drama would happen with other friends.
no.
I think it's a change in society. And also, I've realised quite authentically, I've just thought of this while talking to you, that the last 6 or 7 times I've been with friends, it's because they've asked me, do you want to do something? Do you want to go on a dog walk? Do you want to go out? I think I may have a fear of rejection. And I think
Mm,
it went back to a
I
girl when I
definitely
was
have that.
10 who didn't accept my Easter egg. Because we all
Oh,
used to
wow.
we used to give you a crush an Easter egg on the school playground. And I remember it, Claire, bless her, she's lovely, but didn't accept my Easter egg. And I think from that point forward, I've not wanted to put myself out there and ask. And when these people ask me, I think, could I have a huge social life if I actually went first in asking? But why don't I? I think there might be a fear of genuine connection, that it might commit me then. I know I'm a commitment phobe. Um, don't know. There's a lot to unravel in what you're saying.
There is, and I think I also have a fear of rejection, and I think mine definitely comes from my experience of being an autistic girl and constantly being rejected in a social way. I remember, so I was put forward a year when I was at school, and I remember going to high school, and I went to a different high school to everyone in my middle school. Um, so no one knew me, and I was like, I'm not telling anyone because I'd spent 3 years being told, go back to whatever year I was meant to be in and not the year I was in. And they just didn't. And obviously, those kids had watched me move from one year to the next. It really didn't like that. It did, it jarred, right? And I was also, first to put my hand up, I was literally Hermione Granger. I was not an easy kid to like. Um, I remember the first day, I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to tell anyone. Like, I'm not going to tell anyone I'm a year ahead, and I'll get through 4 years of high school, and no one will ever know that I'm different to them, and that I'm younger than them, and I'm not as cool as them, and that I'm a nerd, right? Obviously, some girl like pretended to be my friend on the first day, got it out of me, and then told everyone, right? And it's those things over and over again,
Yeah.
telling someone your secrets and trying to like become best friends with them, and then that then falling apart over and over again. It does hurt, and it does cause you to put those walls up and then not do that again. I've definitely found, I think my friend Abby and I, we went through a time of let's match other people's energy because we're both givers. We give 100% of ourselves to all of the people in our lives and get 10% back and then get hurt by it. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different
Yeah.
response, right? So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we recognize this about ourselves. Let's match other people's energy. So if someone else messages me first, I'll consider messaging them first next time. If I'm the only person messaging, I'm going to be hurt by that. So I'm not going to let that happen. But I think I might have gone sometimes slightly too far the other way, where I'm then actually never messaging first because somebody else hasn't messaged first. And that's a little bit silly, isn't it? Like sometimes I have to kick myself and go, no, you can message that person. If they reject you, I don't think they will reject you because they are actually your friend and there's no history of that person rejecting you. And if they do, it's not the end of the world. There are other people. But retraining your brain to think that way is quite tough.
Well, no, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. This is a trust issue as well of friends. And if you've been let down a few times, I remember when I was bullied for a few weeks at school, I told my dad, I think I was 12, and he had a chat with me, this, that, and the other, had an argument with my mum, walked past me and went, and you bloody gingers, you're all the same. Replace the word bloody, use something far stronger.
Right.
But I thought, I've just told you half an hour ago about that I was being bullied at school. Now you've walked past and used the same insult at me. That I am not telling anyone. And I wonder how many times people think now when they're watching us talk, oh, someone said that to me, or I disclosed a secret and someone else. I'm not doing that again. And that maybe just makes us go slightly within ourselves even more.
Yeah, I think it does. And that can make you feel really lonely at the time, right? Because you're
Oh,
isolated or you're the only one
hugely,
that's been picked on or whatever.
hugely.
Um and yeah, and then I don't know, am I insanely anti-lonely? Like am I doing everything I can to not feel lonely by being
Don't
okay
know.
and being alone? I think, and I don't think it's bad necessarily, but yeah, I definitely think it came, as I said, came from an unhealthy place, but ended up with me having healthy behaviors and attitudes to it.
Well, I think you and I are very similar actually in the way we talk. We just have protective issues and we're strong. Actually, I think you get to a certain maturity where you go, no is an answer. You're going out tonight? No.
Yes.
That's a full sentence.
I
Um,
had someone
and
send me like a 3 sentence message the other day to let me down. I was just like, just saying you couldn't do it anymore would have been fine. I didn't need
Yeah,
the list of excuses.
that's
Um,
right. That's right. And sometimes when you see those, you think, "Oh, thank God, I didn't want to go either." And then I think, "Well, I feel bad now because I should have been strong enough to say no myself, but I waited for the other person to say no." Why A couple of things really to wrap up is, why don't you and I feel bad about talking about loneliness if loneliness is such a bad thing? I mean, we're talking about it, nothing bad is happening. What is the shame and the guilt that people associate with loneliness that stops them actually wondering whether being alone is better for them?
I think that it all comes down to caring about what other people think.
Oh, bang
And I'll
on.
tell you why.
Oh,
Tell you why. The hardest of all the things that I have done on my own is eating on my own. So I went to comedy gigs, I've been to festivals, I've been on holiday, I've been abroad. Uh, God, I bought a house. I've done all sorts of things on my own, all sorts of different layers of complexity, of safety, of all sorts. And the hardest thing, I've been to the cinema on my own, all of these things. The hardest thing was going to eat on my own. And it's because people's eyes wander in a restaurant. And I think that everybody in there is going to think, oh, she's here on her own. And that they'll notice. Whereas when you go to a comedy gig, if you notice at the breaks,
yeah.
there's not actually that much time where you're not just watching the thing. Everyone's on their phones anyway. Even if they're in a group, they're just staring at their phones because we're addicted to these dumb things, right? So everyone's just staring at their phones. They're not really paying any attention anyway. But in a restaurant, it's the one time when you're not staring at your phone and you do look at the other people. And so my biggest fear about why I was nervous about going out is that everybody would judge me for being on my own and think, oh, what a loner. And I think that's why people don't want to talk about it, because they're more worried that the whole rest of the world isn't lonely. They're all coupled up. They've all got their friendship groups. They're all living their best lives. Because when you go on Instagram, most people's Instagram feeds are pictures of them and their boyfriend, them and their girlfriend, them
Hmm.
and their parents, them
Yeah.
and their kids, them and their friends. When do you see pictures of people on their own? Very rare. Very, very rare. And so, you internalize that and think that most people spend most of their time with other people, and that everyone's going to see you and everyone's going to immediately think you're on your own. Not you're waiting for someone, or you actually with somebody and they've just gone to the loo and that they'll be back, or that actually it's fine to be on your own. Even me just listing those things out, I listed all the reasons why I might not be on my own before being on my
Yeah.
own was an okay thing. And I think that's what it is. I think that's why people
Yes.
don't talk about it.
But you and I would argue, are normal. And we're
Oh, I don't
talking
know if I
about not
am.
kind of. So, if we haven't got the big social, if we haven't by choice, and if we haven't got, other halves, and it's not all about the picture and the photos on social media, then others must be. I mean, we're 100%, me and you. So, who are we fearing? Are these other people?
Well, and so this is the other half of what I've just said, right? Because I think everybody has a bit of main character energy, to use a bit of a Gen Z term. You think that you are the main character and that everybody's looking at you. Actually, no one gives a
They're
flying
so
F
not.
about you,
No,
right? You're in this
no.
restaurant, you're one of 100 people in this restaurant. They don't give a crap about
Mm.
whether you're there on your own. And this is what I've actually learned. And this is why I'm okay with it, because actually no one cares. No one is actually judging you because we're not at school anymore. Yes, at school, everybody judged you for everything, whether you had the Jane Norman bag with your PE stuff in it when I was at school and a little handbag which fit nothing else in, or your dorky backpack that I had that had Eeyore on it. Um, but no one's actually judging you anymore because we're adults and we don't do that anymore. Like, geez.
You are absolutely spot on. You are spot on. And also, no one's watching, no one's listening, no one cares. With the greatest will in the world, I mean, they don't care about you. But in a
People have
restaurant
got
like that,
other
no one cares.
stuff going
If
on.
you were sitting in your pajamas, someone would go, "Oh, there's someone there in their pajamas."
And
Carry
then
on
they'd
with
move
whatever they
on.
were doing.
Exactly.
And how do you know, Emma? Now, oh God, I'm feeling this energy. This is fantastic because I think it's a shift of mind. I think this will help a lot of people. How do you know that? Because the one thing I haven't done, I told you right at the start, is eaten out on my own. Even on a solo cruise, I found
I
it
think you
hard to
should do
sit there
it.
amongst other. I think me and you, next time I'm in London, we'll get two different tables. We'll both sit on our own, and we'll text each other notes like who's
Like,
watching and who's.
oh, have you seen that person walk in? Oh, wait, who cares?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I think you should do
But
it because
how?
it's really freeing. It was terrifying, but it was really freeing.
But how do we know that the lady looking at me, I'm thinking, she's thinking, why is he on his own? He must be a saddo or a loser or something,
She's
hasn't got
probably
any
thinking
friends.
the same thing.
How,
He's thinking this
how
about
do
me.
how do I know she's not thinking, oh, I'll do anything to sit on my own and eat
Or
because
that.
the person opposite me is doing my head in?
Exactly. Exactly.
We're
Remember being at the
programming what we're
end
thinking.
stages of a relationship, when you both know it's over, but neither one of you wants to say it's over yet.
Awkward.
And you're
Yeah.
still going through the motions because it's Valentine's Day or your anniversary or someone's birthday or something, and you've both gone out for this meal and you both just want to go home. Like it's, and you're having to perform. I don't have any of that worries. I'm just out for
No.
dinner. Again, you never know what is going on in someone else's head, and I think that's the main thing that people just need to accept, and that is how people will get over being lonely. Is that actually nobody else is thinking about you being lonely. They're thinking about their own drama, thinking about their own lives, and actually it's not that big.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I was just going to ask you to talk to the listeners directly. Now, if you are listening to this and you are wrestling with feeling lonely, what would your advice be to someone who's feeling lonely? That doesn't mean they are, but they're mentally feeling that they're alone.
I'd say two things, and these are the same two things that I both tell myself and do when I do get in that stage, because I do still occasionally feel lonely from time to time. So the first thing is to revel in it and to do something that nobody else would want to do. Go to that gig, go out for that walk to that place that no one cares about, whatever it is. Do something that genuinely makes you happy. Think about and list out on a piece of paper all of the things that would bring you a small amount of joy. For me, it's music. I love live music, and having a calendar this year. Oh my God, my music calendar this year is crazy. I've
Uh,
got so many cool things. I'm going to download. I'm going to see Metallica. I'm going to see Korn. Like, it's going to be great. Book something, do something, go somewhere, write something, do whatever it is that's
I'm
going to bring
scared.
you joy.
But what if I'm scared? What am I scared of?
What are you scared of? And think about that. But just don't try not to think about the fear or about the loneliness. Think about what would actually bring you joy, what would make you happy. That one isolated thought, write it down, try and do something with it, try and action it. And then the other thing is proactively do something to make you feel less lonely. Text someone. And even if that's really scary and you feel like you don't want to, just try it. And then the other thing, okay, I said there was two, there's three, I'm sorry.
You go on.
So the hardest, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm going to share this in the hope that somebody else might go, oh my God, that's how I feel right now. When I was about to break up with my ex-boyfriend, I talked it through with my friend, the person I was talking about earlier about energy and matching energy. And I said the hardest thing about this is not having someone to send 55 photos of my cat every day looking cute to and have them pretend to care. And I found that actually putting stuff on my Instagram story when I wanted human connection, but I didn't want to message someone and have the fear of rejection, I put up my story. And I do slightly unhealthily obsess over how many people have seen it or reacted to it. I do check that. But that's a bit of human connection where actually there is no rejection because they've either seen it and moved on, which most people do, or occasionally they'll engage with you about it. And so I do put quite a lot of my life, I keep my Instagram quite locked down to people who I'm actually friends with. But I put a lot of my life on Instagram, on the stories. It's not permanent. It's just there for 24 hours. And so whenever I want to message someone or share a moment, because I do all of these awesome things on my own, right? I go to festivals,
Yeah,
I go to
yeah.
gigs, and I go and have all of these experiences. I log it just on my stories and go, oh, this is a cool thing. And I'm like, not being lonely and being alone or not having a life because people can see I'm doing all these cool things. But B, I'm having a little bit of human connection without the rejection. I'm not messaging someone directly and annoying them in my head how I'd feel that they'd feel if I just randomly sent a message to my friend a picture of my cat. But oh, my cat looks cute. I'll put it on my story. Done. And then I don't feel lonely about it anymore. And that's one of the things I've done.
It's funny that you almost have to force yourself into not feeling lonely and then realizing that doing something, and then realizing that it's okay. It sounds a little bit like traits of addiction where you could be addicted to a substance and you think, say alcohol is the most widely used one. I can't imagine my life without alcohol. And then suddenly you go somewhere where it's not allowed. You think, this is amazing. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm seeing all the benefits, but you wouldn't have chosen to do that. But where there's a vacuum that happens, then you have to react. So listening to what you're saying, then commit to something, book
Yeah.
a ticket, book a table, have something you've got to do and feel the fear. Don't expect it to be easy. But I tell you what, from listening to you, it sounds so liberating
It really
once you've
has
done it
been.
because you've proved something to yourself and no one else. You haven't required any exterior validation.
Yeah, and I think especially with music, so I'm into like metal, mostly like quite heavy rock. That's quite a niche music taste. So to expect there to be people in my life who want to go to all of these gigs with me, would
Mm.
be expecting quite a lot from the world. And I just love that nothing is getting in the way of me seeing that band. And everybody there is my friend because they've all gone to see that band too. And you almost always end up chatting to people if you want to, or not if you don't. The weirdest
Yeah.
gig experience of my life, I went to Berlin for my birthday last year because one of my favorite bands was playing a gig in Berlin on my birthday, and Berlin's one of my favorite places. So I was like, sod it, I'm going. I can't really afford it, but that's what credit cards are for. And I went.
Yeah.
Going to a gig in a different country where you speak some rudimentary German, but it's not the best, was an experience because we were all sharing this experience of listening to this band, and I could sing the lyrics to most of the songs, but I couldn't speak to anyone around me with any coherence unless they spoke English. That was weird. That was the only time I felt a little bit lonely at a gig because I didn't understand what was going on. Like, because when bands
Yeah, you
talk
wanted
between
to
the
be part of it,
songs.
almost like a puppy running around other going, I
Yeah,
want to be involved, I want to be involved. But the language barrier was just
yeah,
preventing
exactly.
you.
And I was getting in the mosh pits and I was singing along to the songs
Yeah.
and stuff. And then there was these weird bits, when they talk for a bit in the middle and everyone's like,
Yeah.
just shut up and play the next song. I had no
Yeah.
idea what they were saying because they were speaking in really fluent German quite quickly. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I walked away afterwards and I'd really enjoyed the gig, but I'd not enjoyed it as much as gigs here or gigs where everybody is speaking English. And I'd still do it again, but I'd go into it with those expectations. But yeah.
Well, look, living alone without feeling lonely, not just living alone, but being alone and eating alone, dying alone, and everything else. Negative connotations, being alone. I think from the last, well, we've spoken for over 45 minutes, that it's not bad connotations. This can be liberating. If you're thinking of doing it, if you want to do it, do it. Think about whether you've just been programmed to not want to be alone or whether you actually might be happier without all these external influences. Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you for being so candid, honest, and everything relating back to your childhood and taking us on the journey that's got all the work you've had to do to be happy on your own. Is there anything you'd like to add now or say to the audience?
I'd just like to say, A, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you, and I hope it helps
Absolute
someone.
pleasure.
And B, if you are feeling really lonely and you're struggling with it, there are so many services out there that can help you as well. Like if you're really struggling with your mental health in addition to feeling lonely, and the loneliness feels like it's the thing causing you to spiral, which I've had before, which we didn't cover, and let's not go into it now. But the Samaritans are there. There are other charities there, and just don't think that this is how it's going to feel forever. Like you can push through this.
Absolutely. Very wise words of safeguarding as well with other external influences that can make people feel incredibly alone. Emma, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really mean that.
No worries. Thanks, Simon.